Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is the second episode of Rogues Gallery. I am your host, Chu, and my brother to the right of me is my brother Dino. What's going on, Dino?
What up, man? Yeah, it's all good, man. I
What's going
know
on,
you're
man?
going to have some MMA to talk about.
Oh man, that Connor injury, he fractured it, man. With
Hmm.
one of his leg kicks got checked by Dustin, and Dustin pointed at him, and it was like, "Yeah, I got you, mother
Hmm.
effer." And
Yep. That's what I find interesting. There's a lot of stuff going around about saying, it was a freak accident, a lucky injury, whatever, but it was caused by something Dustin did. So therefore, he should get credit for it. It's just like a defensive, a counter punch or whatever. It's the same thing.
well, I wouldn't agree with that assessment. I think it should have been ruled a doctor stoppage. The TKO wasn't necessary. He just wasn't able to fight. Even in the case with Chris Weidman, when he fought Hall a few months ago, I don't think that person should be getting the victory. Or when Anderson Silva broke his leg against Chris Weidman. But what do you think about Sean O'Malley's performance?
I think you've sold me on him, man. I think you've sold me. I mean, wasn't it something
Hey, that
crazy?
guy
Like he
he
had like,
fought, the guy he fought, he might be the next Nate Diaz. Less talented
sure.
though.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I never seen the
Yeah.
guy
Didn't
take
he
a
have
whooping like
something
that.
crazy like 85% of his strikes or something like that connected?
Yeah, Sean O'Malley connected 250 or 60 strikes and 80%, over 80% landed. But the guy was like a raging bull.
Right.
He
Right.
just
Right.
wouldn't
Right.
stop. The green, I think Joe Rogan called him the green-headed zombie. I think that was a perfect assessment. Hey, you sold me a bill of bad goods with Wonder Boy. What happened there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Gilbert Burns came in a lot more prepared and using what he's good at a lot more than I thought he would, frankly. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think Wonder Boy problem is he's not used to fighting guys as strong
Right.
as Gilbert Burns.
I agree with
So
that.
he was just able to. I mean, they showed a lot of respect for each other in the ring, and I know the fans didn't like it. I didn't like it, but you could tell they both understood what could happen to each other.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. A lot of respect. That's always good. Man, what you got for today, man?
Well, the first topic that we're going to talk about today is Trump responsible for the Capitol riots? So there's been a video trending on Twitter. It had accumulated over 4 million views, I believe, like in the past 2 or 3 days. And basically, the hashtag was arrest Trump now. What do you think about that?
No, I don't agree with any of that, and as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and pull up a little analysis here. Unless you've got something right off the bat, I've got something pretty good here.
Okay, so let's just show the viewers the video first before anything. Cool?
Okay.
All right, let's go to it.
Some time to reflect on what took place on that day, January 6th.
It was a very mild-mannered speech.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength.
Spirit and faith and love. There was such love at that rally.
You're going to die tonight.
And they were peaceful people. These were great people.
You want to fight? You better believe you got to.
Terrorists dragging the officer down the stairs, beating and stomping and smashing him with a pole flying the American flag.
And I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
So that's the video, Dino.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that to me seems highly edited, to get a certain point across.
Wouldn't you say that they did a good job of editing there?
They did a great job. That's pretty convincing. I think I'd like to think I know better, but that's pretty convincing.
Definitely. So you said you had some analytics you wanted to.
I sure do. So let's go there. So all right. So here's an article from BBC, and let's make sure. All right, make sure I'm good here. So first thing is, I like to use, I'll say, any site or anything that's usually got the opposite opinion of what I do, because I'm kind of curious as to what they think. And what would happen is, if they convince me, then fine, I'll chalk one up for them. If they don't, though, I think that it gives us a lot of ammo to use against them. So let's see what the BBC says, because that they're definitely anti-Trump leaning. So, did Trump's words at the rally incite violence? So let's just get to the quotes here. We won this election, and we won it by a landslide. That doesn't directly incite violence. I don't even think it indirectly does. We will stop the steal. Same. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. Now, you might say that that's a bit aggressive of a sentence, but in the context of talking about an election, you would then think that he means voting and continuing the election process. Okay, so let's just keep going here. If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Okay, fine. I'll give you that one. That one could be taken wrong, even though I sure don't think that that's what he meant. But there's going to be plenty of examples of things like that coming up. And then to tie it in right after that, he says, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard, which definitely does not incite violence. So
I think if he has a good lawyer, that should be like a slam dunk right there with those final quotes right there.
Oh, definitely. And, and I think that's why the impeachment issue didn't work or whatever, So on that topic, let's go ahead and check this out too now, Here's where we're going to go next. Let's see. All right. PolitiFact. Again, another site that I would like to see what they think, because if they're wrong, we can throw it in their face. Quotes show Democrat. Okay, the supposed debunk here is quotes show Democrats supported riots when BLM was burning down cities and killing people in the streets. And they're supposedly going to debunk that and say that no, the Democrats did not encourage violence. So let's start with Ayanna Pressley, a woman that has my haircut, which is not a good thing. So they have to admit.
Sexier than Ayanna Pressley?
I'm sorry?
Are you saying that you're sexier than Ayanna Pressley?
By far. So, all right. Even they have to admit that she did call for unrest in the streets in an August 15th interview. Now, where they use their debunk is that they say that it had nothing to do with BLM, but they didn't debunk the fact that she said something that was pretty rough. So if we're talking about inciting violence, let's just make sure that we realize that this stuff goes both ways. So Kamala Harris, the quote attributed to Harris, protesters should not let up, is legitimate, but she was neither referring to riots nor condoning people burning down buildings. Well, that's the same argument that we have about what Trump said, that no matter what he said, he wasn't referring to invading the Capitol, hurting anyone, or destroying anything. So here we go again. But you know what? Let's keep going. Maxine Waters, everybody's favorite quote here. If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and create a crowd and push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. That's pretty rough, especially since she's talking about members of her own cabinet who just happen to be of the other party. But that is definitely, I would say that's pretty damn close to inciting violence, you know? But again, they debunk it by saying that she said it earlier than the BLM movements. So I don't care when she said it, she still did it. Nancy Pelosi.
So hold on. So her
Yeah.
encouraging her supporters, her constituents, to have and display this behavior. So when opportunity exists and they do exhibit this behavior, she's not inciting riots. Is this what I'm gathering from this?
Yeah. Well, you know, they say that they're debunking it, but they're not debunking the fact that they said something inflammatory. What they're debunking is when they said it. So in reality, it's not a true debunk, if I'm phrasing this properly, you know. So you would see the headline and you would say, okay, PolitiFact just debunked all of these crazy conspiracy theories, when in fact they don't. They just dispute some of the minor, I say insignificant details, you know, saying that just because it wasn't directly about BLM, that therefore it didn't happen. That's just not accurate, you know. So
Now,
the last one,
to Nancy Pelosi, right?
I'm sorry.
You said it goes to Nancy Pelosi as well?
That's exactly the next one that I'm going to bring up. Pelosi's alleged riot quote, "I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over this country. Maybe there will be." Well, you know, that definitely sounds like an incitement in my book. So, you know, so again, so my whole complaint is that there's a severe double standard here, that if they're going to bring up all things that Trump supposedly did, they do it also. And that's it. Even if you don't like him and you find him guilty, whatever, just admit they all do it. That's my argument.
Yeah, I think what it truly is Democrats good, Republican bad. And I'm not meaning to wear red to support Republicans, because clearly I'm not, never voted for any presidential candidate. So let's just throw that out the water. Now, number two, right? I have the best argument to support that Donald Trump was not responsible for the Capitol riots, right? So I'm going to pull up this article, right? It's from USA Today News, so clearly they cannot be wrong. But what I'm going to show the people, right? This is where I'm circling the ellipse. That is where Donald Trump had his gathering at, right? Now, as you can see, the U.S. Capitol is all the way over here, okay? So follow me now. Follow me real quick. So they aren't banking on people putting the address of the ellipse in the U.S. Capitol to see the distance, the walking distance, right? So what do you think the walking distance from the ellipse to the U.S. Capitol is?
I want to say maybe 200-300 yards.
So what kind of time do you think it would take someone walking from Trump's ellipse to the U.S. Capitol? What do you think?
I'm thinking 10 minutes, maybe, depending on how fast you're going.
You are wrong, sir. So I put it in Google, right?
Okay.
And it would take 53-minute walk from the ellipse to the state capitol. Now,
I was a little off, huh?
Yeah, we're big old. But look, like when you look at it, you just be like, oh, it looks close, but it's really not close. Now, follow the bounce ball right now, right?
All right.
Trump's speech started at 11:50 a.m., right? His speech ended at 10. No, I said 10, excuse me. 1:10 p.m., right? The riot started at 1:10 p.m. So if Trump enticed his supporters to storm the Capitol that morning, how did they get to the Capitol so fast? If his speech ended at 1:10 and the riot started at 1:10.
I like those points, brother. I like those. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I did this last night too, by the way. I said, you know what? Let me just put the numbers in on Google and see where they take me, right? So 53 minutes, brother. So if he
Okay.
entices supporters, he's telling them all these nasty, awful things and, come take it back and do all these sort of crazy things. How the hell they get there that fast? Did they all have motorcycles by any chance?
Yeah, evidently not.
Now we're gonna segue from that topic, right? And we're gonna jump into, was the FBI involved in the Capitol riots? If so, why do you think they let it happen, right? Now, going through a rabbit hole, which I usually go through, Dino, I came across something. Amy Klobuchar, I think it was some sort of committee, and they were asking the CIA director Christopher Wray about, the alleged events of the Capitol riots, right? So I'm gonna pull that up, and they do a really good job because she did a good job of not asking him the question, but asking him the question, and he did a good job of doing the lawyerly thing where they like slither out the questions and not answer questions directly. So I'm gonna pull up something real quick. Let's see it. I believe it is right here. Okay, so it's a short video, and I'm gonna play it right now. Let me cross this out for you guys.
Be moments where you think, if we would have known, if we could have infiltrated this group or found out what they were doing. And that, do you have those moments?
Absolutely. I will tell you, Senator, and this is something I feel passionately about, that anytime there's an attack, our standard at the FBI is we aim to bat 1,000, right? And we aim to thwart every attack that's out there. So anytime there's an attack, especially one that's this horrific, that strikes right at the heart of our system of government, right at the time the transfer of power is being discussed, you can be darn tootin' that we are focused very, very hard on how can we get better sources, better information, better analysis, so that we can make sure that something like what happened on January 6th never happens again.
Okay.
So you see that, right, Dino?
Right.
She asks, I kind of wish we had infiltrated the militias that rioted at the Capitol, but he doesn't directly answer it.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I hate to sound so general, but I just want to say, duh. They stick their nose in pretty much everything that they can get their hands on. I mean, do we need to go back to government involvement in anything really? But actually, let me show you something here, man. So there's a big history of the FBI and law enforcement going undercover and actually causing more trouble than it's worth. So let me show you something here.
What is the link about?
Okay, so several years ago, there was a biker gang that had accosted a driver on the West Side Highway in New York. And that seemingly seems like it's not much, but an undercover NYPD cop was arrested in that biker gang. Now, that in itself is even not the real issue. Let's go in and see. Officer Wojciech Braszak, if I can pronounce Polish correctly, turned himself into police. Okay. Breshok has spent 10 years with the NYPD, the last 5 as an undercover, including during the Occupy Wall Street movement, according to a law enforcement official. You know, during his time with Occupy Wall Street, he participated in demonstrations, attended meetings, and essentially lived like a protester to provide information to the NYPD. Now, I'm sure any cop, anybody just looking at that would say, duh, that's what undercovers is supposed to do, you know? But also, how often are these people, agent provocateurs, disguised as undercover agents trying to do the right thing? Yeah. And I think that's where the big question lies in, you know, is if the FBI was involved in these riots, did they know about these things? Why didn't they stop it? And more importantly, were they actually part of the inciting? Were they helping to radicalize random people to get it done?
Now, this is good stuff right here, right? Because for people that don't really are oblivious to the FBI being involved in certain organizations and having informants, they do this all the time. In the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, William Bill O'Neill, he was the guy that befriended the leader of the Chicago Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton. He was an FBI informant. You know, this is what they do. Now, I'm going to show you, right, why I say the FBI was involved in the Capitol riots. Not only are there co-indictors that are involved that have not been charged yet, but also, so during the repressive lockdowns of the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer, there was a alleged plot to kidnap her, right? Now, the details of that story have came out, and this is where it's led us. The FBI allegedly used at least 12 informants in Michigan kidnapping case, right? So I'm gonna highlight this article, right? Because I think it's pretty important. And this was recently. This article was written in July 12, 2021, and the government employed at least a dozen confidential informants to infiltrate groups of armed extremists who allegedly plotted to kidnap the governor of Michigan, according to a new filing in federal court on Monday. The filing made by one of the 5 defendants in the federal case asked the prosecutors to be ordered to share more information about those informants, their relationship with the FBI, and the specific roles they played in building the case. It came among a blizzard of 15 new defense motions in the high-profile case, including requests to move it to a different district, to suppress evidence from a search warrant, and to try at least one defendant separately from the others. So there is a pattern, right? And we could go, there's so many cases. This article as well talks about how the FBI was involved in the first bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993. Now, the person that was involved in it, as we could read, it's a little slow here. Let me pull it up real quick. Basically, the person that supplied, okay, so we got it here right now, right? Thanks to 9/11, the 1993 attempt to blow up the World Trade Center is little remembered today. However, at the time, it was one of the most significant terror attacks in U.S. history, killing 6 people and injuring more than 1,000. If the bomb had succeeded in its intended purpose, toppling North Tower into South, it might have claimed tens of thousands of lives. Now, here's the real juicy part. What is even less known, though, is that the bomb that nearly murdered tens of thousands was built with the help of an FBI informant. Egyptian immigrant Imad Salim was a part of Ramazi Yusuf's cell during the plotting of the attack. This is just crazy, and this is, it just goes on, folks. This is not a game. COINTELPRO. We could go to Martin Luther King. We could go to Malcolm X. We could go to the Black Panther Party. Huey Newton. Who else we got out there, Dino?
Oh, I mean, I say all of them. JFK, Sirhan, every last one of them.
Now, here's another thing too, right? The FBI was also involved in the shooting. A lot of you guys probably don't remember it, but this was the first annual Muhammad art exhibit contest in Texas, right? Now, that's pretty inflammatory because usually Muslims don't depict their religious figures in like artistic ways. Is usually calligraphy, if I'm saying it correctly. And basically, the Garland attack, when Simpson and Sophie drove to the site of the attack, an FBI agent was in his car right behind them. The informant was dressed in Middle Eastern garb and looked the part so well that the local police nearly shot him in the mayhem. So there was a car. Damn, my dog is going crazy. There was a car with an FBI personnel in it witnessing the attacks of this event, and they let it happen. It was in video. I think I seen it in what was it? I can't really remember the broadcast. I remember seeing the video on, but this video of it, the FBI agent was watching them do it and antagonizing them to do it, and this is how they roll, brother.
Yeah, that's exactly why I brought up the NYPD incident, you know. So if you just compare that to the one that you just brought up about the bombing, you know, how it was actually even helped built by FBI informants, you know, you wonder at the same time, all of these undercover operations really need to be monitored better, and we should know what they were actually doing in there.
Yeah, I think we need another church committee. I believe the church committee back in the days in the 70s was to basically rein in the IRS, the FBI, the CIA, because they were abusing their power. So I'm gonna just show a little flash to the viewers, but just to build our case even more. This is from Revolver News, and it says unindicted co-conspirators in the January 6 cases raise disturbing questions of federal foreknowledge, right? So what's your final conclusion on all this?
Oh, that, you know, they were definitely involved. You know, I mean, I'm just skeptical about that whole thing. And that's why I say that every time you find out something big happened, you find out there was an undercover officer somehow involved, there were informants, there were whatever, you know, it's every single time.
Absolutely. So we're just going to move on to our next topic, brother, and you want to take control of that?
Yes, indeed. So Mr. Jospeh Bolanos, this is a story that really got to me because it's definitely hits close to home. It's in my old neighborhood in New York City. And here we go. West Side community leader says he did not take part in the Capitol Hill riot. So Jospeh Bolanos is an Upper West Side resident, and his mother lives in Washington Heights. So as you and I both know, that probably means that he's Dominican. Yeah. And he is an Upper West Side community leader. He's been there most of his life. He was a real fixture in the neighborhood. And he was definitely at the Capitol on January 6th. It was back in February that the FBI agents searched his West 76th Street apartment and his mom's Washington Heights apartment. Residents had called the FBI and also told reporters that Bolanos had been heard boasting to neighbors about being at the Capitol on January 6th. You know, during the search, investigators seized electronic devices as part of the criminal investigation. Since February, Bolanos has not been charged and has not returned repeated requests from NBC for comment, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Bolanos told the newspaper that while he supported Trump policies, he was not a Trump fanatic. And let's go ahead and switch. I'm going to show you a different screen now.
So quick question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's a big difference whether if he was inside the Capitol or outside the Capitol. So
Correct.
what's the verdict on that? Was he
That's
inside?
That's exactly where we're going here. All right. So now we have the New York Post's version of this story, which is mostly the same, just goes into more detail. FBI tears innocent New Yorker's life into shreds after January 6th. So we're going to link to all of these, so you can read it. So I don't sit here boring you reading everything. But the point is he was there, but did not go inside the Capitol. Yet he got, I don't want to say prosecuted, he got persecuted for this anyway. Here it's saying he was a Red Cross volunteer after the 9/11 attacks. He cares for his 94-year-old mother, blah, 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 all of the usual stuff, He was in a friend's room at the Marriott, a 30-minute walk away from the Capitol when the breach occurred. So he was actually nowhere near it, even though he was, quote, there. Nonetheless, he was raided in February by the FBI. It basically ruined this guy's life, and, we're talking now, he's, he was a fixture of the neighborhood. Everybody loved him. There were no problems. But as soon as this happened, everybody turned on him. Nothing about the guy changed. He was the exact same guy before and after, but now he's ostracized. It also says in one spot that he did not receive his, let me see if I can find that for you. Somewhere on here, it says they did not return his phones and everything else that they took from him, which that actually leads into something, one of my pet peeves, man. I cannot stand civil forfeiture. It doesn't matter how innocent you are, you're never getting that stuff back again. Yeah. So, yeah.
For the viewers that don't know what that is, can you explain that to them?
Civil forfeiture. Okay. It's supposedly done to stop people from profiting off of criminal activity. Saying that, okay, if you're a drug dealer, then they're going to take the incentive to be one by confiscating your money, your cars, whatever else. At face value, that sounds just fine. But there are so many cases where it's completely abused. You pull over somebody who just went to an ATM. Maybe he's got $1,000 on him. Even though he can prove that he went to an ATM, they can confiscate that money and good luck getting it back. Even if a judge sides with you, it's going to be, okay, we're waiting for the paperwork. We're waiting for the supervisor to let us in. We're waiting for it. You're never going to see it. End of story.
Okay. Now, since you were reading that article, right? What really fascinated me about that was the fact that someone overheard him speaking about how he was there and how they called probably a hotline and told, the FBI, hey, I know somebody that was there. Please arrest them and stuff like that, right? So if you don't remember, early during the pandemic, the mayor of Los Angeles, who is Mayor Garcetti, right? He made these comments about snitches don't get stitches anymore. They get rewards. So I'm gonna let the viewers watch that real quick to know what kind of society that they're building up in America.
We need to make sure that everybody continues to let us know where those folks are. If you've observed recurring violations of the Safer at Home order, please continue to let us know at coronavirus.lacity.org/business violation. The old expression about snitches. Well, in this case, snitches get rewards. We want to thank you for turning folks in and making sure we are all safe.
So I want to thank you for turning folks in. That sentence in itself needs to go, man.
Now, these are public figures, so there is power in their words, and that type of stuff can spread. Now, for a lot of the viewers out there that aren't familiar, that sort of sentiment was shared during the Eastern occupation of Germany after World War II. There was this intelligence community. Well, it was one of the most repressive secret police and intelligence states in the world has ever seen, right? The Stasi. I'm gonna bring it up. just so people could do their Googles or whatnot. You know much about the Stasi?
Well, if you want to say much, I'll say no. I'm not a scholar on them, and I sure as heck wasn't there during it. But I know damn well, all of the obvious, that they were basically one big snitch culture, and that's who you turned everybody into, and that's unfortunately where a lot of people here want to go.
Yeah, definitely. I got it right here. Stasi, the Minister of State Security. It has been described as one of the most effective and repressive intelligence and secret police agency ever to have existed. The Stasi was headquartered at East Berlin with an extensive complex of Berlin and several smaller faculties throughout the city. And they went around rounding up people, torturing them. So it kind of makes you think or wonder, like, is that gonna happen here eventually? I mean, we're already against free speech, so what the hell?
I think it's possible, and I was definitely worried about it really ramping up bad once the COVID thing started. I got to say, I think things have calmed down a little bit, but I don't want to let my guard down. I still think that they're very capable of trying to bring that back, and I think a lot of people want to. I think that there's several states, Florida, Texas, the Dakotas, that have really showed the way, and we're making everybody else look bad. So I think we bought some time on that prediction.
So we're gonna move into our next topic, and this is a very, very interesting one. Was the CIA behind the assassination of the Haitian president? What do you think, Dino?
I think just like the past few articles that we were just reading about FBI involvement, I think anytime that there's letters involved, FBI, CIA, NSA, whatever, I think there's a high likelihood that they're involved in something.
Okay. Now, I've been going through another rabbit hole. I just tend to find myself in different rabbit holes, but I definitely believe the CIA was involved. For viewers that don't know what's going on, the Haitian president was assassinated, right? A group of 26 men, I believe 23 or 24 of them were Colombians, and three of them were Haitian Americans. They were all disguising themselves as DEA agents, and somehow they made it past the president's security team, and somehow they got past the panic room. So definitely reeks of an inside job, whether it was the Haitian leaders themselves plotting or the CIA just wanting a regime change. Now, here's the thing, right? 12 of the men have been murdered. Some of the suspects were seized in the raid at Taiwan's embassy, which were believed that have sought refuge. Now, here's the thing, right? The alleged leader of this attack, right? It just has CIA written all over it, right? I'm going to show you right now, brother. Let me add this to the screen. Article is loading up. So basically, there's this Haitian doctor who's not really a doctor, right? And he was paying all 26 of these guys $3,000 a month, right? Now, this alleged doctor, the same doctor, went bankrupt. So how is a guy that's bankrupt able to pay 26 men $3,000 a month? Now, I did the numbers, I did the math, and that comes up to $78,000 a month. Now, let's just say he wasn't doing that for 1 month. That's a pretty hefty penny that I'm pretty sure that he didn't have, right? So the main question is, who was funding him? How was he getting his money to fund this operation? The Haitian president, as revealed, arrived on a private jet before shooting with the intention of taking over the country. Christian Emmanuel Sagnon, a Haitian doctor who was based in Florida, was arrested in connection with the Haitian president assassination. He recently entered Haiti on a private plane with the intentions of taking the Haitian presidency. He's the third person with U.S. ties to be arrested in the murder. Sagnon is accused of being one of the leaders of the assassination by recruiting CTU security. Now, CTU security is counter-terrorism unit security, which recruited the Colombian to carry out the hit. 3 men were claiming to be leaders of a Caribbean country which had plagued into chaos, right? Now, if you don't think any of that is fishy, right? Let me just show you the U.S. roles in regime change in South America and throughout the whole world, right? So this is a list. Let me pull it up. Add to stream. Add to stream, right? Overthrowing other people's governments, the master list. So it has China, Albania, Iran, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Syria, Egypt. The list goes on and on, folks. This is literally a list of the CIA being involved in the overthrowing of governments, assassinations, et cetera, right? So I'm gonna scroll down all of this, right? It keeps on going on. It's nuts, right? Now, for the people that don't really know, the CIA ramped up their regime change during the Eisenhower administration. He took over the presidency after Harry S. Truman in the 50s, right? Now, the CIA overthrew the elected government of Guatemala. The top advisors worried that President Jacob Guzman was too willing to cooperate with local communists, even though they had only a limited role in the government in 1954. So when the new president came in, Carlos Armas, he revised land reform and clamped down on the communists, and he also restricted voting rights and curtailed civil liberties before assassin murdered him in 1957. Not only that, we also had the overthrow of Iran in 1953 with the ouster of Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh in the earliest coup of the Cold War that the U.S. government has acknowledged. In 1953, after nearly 2 years of his premiership, during which time he challenged the authority of the Shah and the nationalization of Iranian oil industry previously operated by British companies. He was forced from office and arrested, spending the rest of his life under house arrest, right? So those are two examples of the CIA being involved in the ouster or the assassination of a prime minister or president, right? Now, this is probably the most egregious one, and it happens in the Congo in the 1960s with Patrice Lumumba, right? He was the heart of Africa, the first prime minister of the Congo, and he was pushed out of office by the president Joseph Kosovo. Now, Malcolm X loved Patrice Lumumba. When you read Malcolm X autobiography, he talks about it in great detail, how much he meant to Africa, right? So basically, he was removed because the U.S. was supporting the Belgian military intervention of the country. A violent effort to maintain Belgian business interests after the country decolonization. But Patrice maintained an armed opposition to the Belgian military and befriended the Soviet Union for supplies, sort of like what Cuba has done, right? He was eventually targeted by the CIA once the agency determined that he was a threat to the newly installed government. Another one, this is just nuts. Like, a lot of people don't know this.
So, no, they don't. Yeah. And actually that's gonna, I've actually got one that I'd like to bring up with that also. So let me go ahead and share something with y'all here.
Hold on. I'm gonna show the people one thing real quick, because if it's not CNN, they don't believe it, right? So right there is
Agreed.
CNN stating several tied to Haiti's assassination plot were previously U.S. law enforcement informants. What do you think about that?
That's blown me away. That's the first that I've seen that headline. So I did not know that. But you know what, man? Again, I just want to say figures. You know, it's exactly what we were just talking about. That anytime there's an undercover or an informant or whatever, you got to wonder, why are they there? What are they doing?
So just facts for the people viewing, right? There was also the Dominican Republic. From the Dominicans watching this viewership, the dictator Trujillo, right? And he was involved in ethnic cleansing of thousands of Haitians back in the days in the Dominican Republic. He attempted to assassinate the president of Venezuela, and the president survived the ambush attack. He had sent like political dissidents to the country to try to blow up one of his motorcades or something like that. But here's the thing, right? With Trujillo, right? The church committee found that material support consisting of 3 pistols and 3 carbines was supplied to various dissidents. United States officials knew that the dissident intended to overthrow Trujillo, probably by assassination. That's another shining example of the CIA being involved with the Dominican leader's assassination.
Definitely. You know. So yeah.
So where you want to springboard from here?
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw in another example to you. You know. So Kissinger and Chile, the declassified record. You know, I'll be a little quick on this one. You know, so I'm sure somewhere in that list that you just showed, they had to mention Chile and overthrowing Allende. You know, so Kissinger overruled aids on military regime's human rights atrocities. He told Pinochet in 1976, "We want to help, not undermine you. You did a great service to the West in overthrowing Allende." And I think anybody, well, I say everybody should know, but if you don't, just go ahead and look up Pinochet's atrocities, please, because he was arguably one of the worst dictators ever. And it is hands down fact that the U.S. helped put him in there. September 11th. Oh, interesting day, huh? September 11th, 2013. Henry Kissinger urged President Richard Nixon to overthrow the democratically elected Allende government in Chile because his model effect can be insidious. You know, so let's drop down to some of the quotes from Kissinger. You know, on September 12th, 8 days after Allende's election, Kissinger initiated discussion on the telephone with CIA Director Richard Helm about a preemptive coup in Chile. So just notice that all over this article, you're going to see CIA. You know, they're going to be mentioned so many times in helping overthrow the government of Chile and then putting in one of the worst dictators that we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
So there's another example for you, man.
They were also trying this crap in Syria, and they failed the overthrowing of the prime minister over there.
I do agree.
This is standard tactics of these guys.
Yep. You know, so that actually makes me think the next topic that you have lined up here is, should the U.S. intervene in Cuba's affairs? And I even think maybe we should ask, are we already involved in Cuba's affairs?
Okay.
You know?
Good point.
But,
good point.
So, yeah, you know, I want to say no, we absolutely shouldn't be, even though I know Cuba's a bad place. You know, I know there's obviously millions of Cubans that fled, you know, but I'm just not sure that every time we stick our nose in something that it's either that country's best interest, or if we're going to if it's the right thing to do. You know, I think you always run the risk of the reign of terror sort of comparison there, you know, of not knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm an isolationist. I don't really believe in U.S. intervention in a lot of these countries: Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Cuba, for that matter. I believe it's up to the Cubans that live there to overthrow that government in a successful revolution, as did Fidel Castro did with his small band of rebels in the jungle when he took over.
I
So
agree.
here's the thing, right? You already have Republican leaders like Marco Rubio, and I don't think Ron DeSantis is Cuban, but they're
Yep.
already having support for the Cubans and telling Joe Biden to play a more significant role in that case, right? So I'm gonna pull up this article from Newsweek. Hopefully it loads up. It's kind of slow. So yeah, so here's the article. Newsweek: Joe Biden wounds Cuba, Venezuela, and China hopes of Obama-style detente. So President Trump, through the support of large anti-government protests in Cuba, appears to have scuppered Havana's hopes of Obama-style detente of between two nations. Biden administration also maintaining its predecessor Donald Trump confrontational stance on Venezuela and China, two of Cuba's closest allies. So what here's my thing, right? For Republican leaders being against the overthrow of the Syrian government, why do you think they're so concerned about whether it's Trump, whether it's Obama, whether it's Biden now in office? Why do you think they're so concerned about overthrowing Cuba now?
Hey, you know, I think well, I can't say every, I'll say both of our political parties, since there's really only two, you know, one side favors one type of government, the other one favors another, you know, and I think that they just got a hard on for Cuba because they're communist, which, I mean, I can't say that I blame them, but just like you said, man, I think we're just better off just keeping our nose out of it. But I think that's the obvious reason is it's one side's got an ideology. They want to steer our neighbors or whatever in one direction. The other side's got another, and they want to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it just baffles me. Marco Rubio is Cuban, so I understand why he would share those sentiments. You know, part of his huge voting bloc are Cubans, so for him to entertain those theories, he's simply pandering to his own voter bloc. Another thing is, I hope Republicans don't pick up this trend of just being adversarial towards Biden for payback what was done to Trump. I think you need to stay on principle, and that's the most important part. And if they are able to stay on principle through the midterms, through elections, results will be fruitful for them. So, what do you think about those comments?
I agree. I agree so much about, you know, saying that the Republicans need to just stay on focus. Don't be petty. Don't get stupid and just go after him just, you know, for ideological purposes. You know, I agree with that completely. You know, I think that's the best point that you made in all of that for sure.
Now, you want to springboard off of this one and go to the next topic?
Sure. Let's do that. So for our last one, now here's something interesting, and it's over in the UK, so it doesn't affect us directly. However, it's still something worth knowing about. Communist Party lockdown zealot freaks out when asked about her beliefs. So here's something very interesting. So A behavioral scientist who wants mask mandates to continue forever freaked out and refused to answer the question when asked if her lifetime membership of the Communist Party informed her beliefs. Now, let's just talk about exactly what she does over in the UK. So it says Susan Mishi, who is advising the UK government as part of the SAGE scientific dictatorship, which has had the country locked down for the best part of 15 months, was finally confronted. Okay, so that's what she does. You know, let's read a little bit about her. And let me show you this. And let's see what we can find out about her. Okay, Susan Mishi on Wikipedia. That's always reliable, right? Well, you know, it's got all the typical stuff. She's born, blah, career. All right. So let's read this here. As a clinical psychologist, she worked with adults and families on topics covering antenatal care, genetic counseling, and occupational stress. Here's the part that I like, though. Her later career interests have been in designing and evaluating methods of behavioral change, especially in relation to well-being and health improvement. So let's just stop and digest that for a minute. Here's someone who has basically locked down the UK, you know, is enforcing masks, in her opinion, forever. And what she's essentially doing is putting on one big Milgram or Stanford experiment, which we'll explain that in a minute in case somebody doesn't know what those are. Yeah. But that's pretty much what she's doing. So if that's her career, if that's what she does is design and evaluate methods of behavioral change, then, you know, you got to think, is what she's doing about COVID truly based on an illness and not part of her training in behavioral change in relation to well-being and health improvement? So that's the part that I didn't like about this, you know. But to stick to point, let's go down a little bit more. And at the very end, of course, because they're thinking you're not going to read all the way through, Mishi is a member of the Communist Party of Britain and was also member of its predecessor, the Communist Party of Great Britain, as if that's two different things, whatever, you know. In March 2018, she spoke at a public meeting saying that communists should be working full tilt for the election of Jeremy Corbyn as prime minister. So there you go. You have someone who is a communist and a behavioral modification specialist doing things that communists like done and change behavior. So I can't see how that's like just not obvious as to what she's actually doing.
Now, something that came to my mind, communists, their whole agenda is about toppling the capitalist society, right? So if this person is in a seat of power, can you hear me, Dino?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if this person is in a position of power and she's a communist member and she has power to make these laws restrictive and oppressive, then it begs to wonder, okay, how much of this has to do with you wanting to destroy the capitalist infrastructure that's in place to favor socialist, you know, legislation? What do you think about that?
I think you nailed it. I can't change a thing you just said because I think you're absolutely right. You know, that, well, you know, like I said, you know, there was a big behavioral study, if you want to call it that, you know, going on with the lockdowns, with, you know, stay at home, don't see your family and all that kind of stuff, and a power grab, which is what the communists like doing. So I think she's tailor-made for that situation.
So basically, the communists have infiltrated every form of society, got into positions of power, like the former CIA director John Brennan, who was a lifelong CIA member. Communist member. So there seems to be a trend here. But on that note, Dino, we're gonna end the broadcast. I seem to be lagging and having technical problems over here. So my brother, it's a freaking pleasure as usual, brother. Any last
brother.
words for the people?
We will do this again. See ya.
Absolutely. Can you end the broadcast on your end?
Yes, sir. I'm going to do it right now. Adios.
All right, brother.